And welcome everyone to our live optional Q&A for Public Administration 6123 Economic Development for March 20th. Thanks everybody for tuning in, and we'll be here wherever time we need to be tonight, but hopefully everybody can hear me. I'm not using a microphone this evening because I've had a little bit of trouble with the microphone, but I am here and everybody hopefully is able to hear me. What I want to do is go over assignment 5 again and answer any questions people have on assignment 5 and point out a couple of things about it. Looking over assignment 5, if y'all have had a chance to, you all should note that a lot of the information that you need for assignment 5 has already been done with the prior assignments that you have. Not going to get into too much detail about that because I want you to think about, after reading that and reading your book, you can find out the information you need to know about assignment 5 about what base analysis is in chapter 6 of your textbook. But the reality is that a lot of that information is there, and to do the analysis part of it, the employment analysis part of it, where you're trying to look at the role of how certain jobs apply to other jobs in terms of their impact, that information is there for you to take a look at. But we'll be happy to answer any questions that you may have on that assignment. I'm going to hit the mute again for everybody. But if you want to enter into the chat what your questions are, let me see hold on just one second. Okay, I haven't left. I have found my backup headset, so I'm going to plug this in and see if this works better. Okay, is this better? Okay, good. Okay, first question come up. Please go over the details for night for homework 5. Elijah also asked about is the employment multiplier stable over time? Well, honestly, I don't think it is. It all depends on the way in which you use your data. And the one thing about the data sources that we've been using is they don't separate out some of the back-end sectors of employment. Like, for example, in the assignment, it actually talks a little bit about the role of government employment, federal and state employment, and some sectors of the economy. There's a sector of the economy that may have a combination of private employment, public employment, and that public employment can be split between state, local, and federal. So there is some factor there. Can you hear me now? Can people hear me? Okay, good. All right, so we have audio. What I will say is that, but overall, the economic multiplier can change over time because in reality, certain sectors respond to the economy differently. Some sectors may have more of a multiplier effect and other sectors may not be. It all depends upon, not all sectors are that way. Some sectors do not change over time. For example, manufacturing still has a pretty strong multiplier effect, or at least that's the perception. And right now, if you look at what's going on in Washington with the new administration, they still believe that traditional manufacturing, both in skilled and unskilled areas, still has a similar multiplier effect, which is why they're pushing what they believe are policies to promote domestic manufacturing growth. The same could be said for the service sector. The service sector, certain service sectors like technology, computer-based services are believed to have certain multipliers. The challenge with multipliers is that you're being asked to do some hard calculations. You're being asked to actually calculate what those multipliers are. And you're asked to count them based on experience. And yes, you may see that if you use your older set of data from 2000, 2005, and you use the more recent data from 2015, you may see a different effect. So what I would suggest is pick two time periods, one of which being the most recent data, the 2015 data that you have the location quotients for, and use that data and use that to kind of say, okay, here's where we are now. Then compare it and use that in terms of thinking about, okay, where are we now compared to where we're going, but also look at where those multipliers were, say, 5 years ago, 10 years ago, 15 years ago. Some of you have done that. Some of you have not. Some of you have only done what the assignments request. And if you've got those two data sets, that's what you should use. Don't feel like you got to go out there and get more data. But what I will tell you is, for those of you who are in areas that have a strong dependence on the military, and being Eastern North Carolina, there are those areas, that's going to be a little bit of a challenge, because the data that's produced by the Bureau of Economic Statistics in those files doesn't give a lot of depth to it when it comes to looking at public service employment. So something that I would suggest for you, and you can do this for 2015 because all the data is there, I'm going to share. First of all, let me do something real quick. I'm going to move this over. I'm going to share screen for a second. And if you go to, okay, everybody should see, this is from the state of North Carolina. It should say, there should be a number 4 there. If someone can chat in just to tell me that they see that, there should be the number 4 for the demand. Yes, okay, good. Demand-driven data delivery system. This is the state-based data that's submitted by the state of North Carolina through the Department of Commerce to the U.S. Bureau of Labor Statistics. And what I've pulled up for is the QCEW, the Quarterly Census of Employment and Wages. And if you actually go to their homepage, which is up here, d4.ncommerce.com, d4.ncommerce.com. It will take you to this page, and the first thing you will see is this kind of head page where they've got several different states. If you click on QCEW, that'll take you to the quarterly census. I will post this in an email to go out tonight with a reminder about this assignment as well as the next assignment. And what you see in this quarterly census of employment and wages is that it actually does allow you to look at multiple sectors and actually look at the ownership of those jobs across sectors. So, for example, let me just zoom in a little bit here. You can see that you've got private, local, state, and federal. You can also go, what I want you to do would be to do it for the 2015 annual. That's the closest that you're going to get to the numbers that you got from the Bureau of Labor Statistics. You're not going to get the exact same numbers. I don't know. There's some differences that occur in calculations. You got 2 different groups working on the data at the federal level. So don't expect the numbers to be exact. And then I would also work in the sector level. You've got this field here for NAICS. You want to work in that sector because that's that two digit, which is what we worked on when you worked on with the Bureau of Labor Statistics data. The Bureau of Economic Analysis data, When you worked with their data, it gave you it at the 2-digit sector level. There were some in the 3 digits, but we focused on the 2-digit level, which is your sector. That's where we got our sectoral shares and our location quotients. So over here from data, you have a lot of data to choose for. You can look at average employment, which is what we want. Don't worry about month 1, month 2, and month 3, because we're looking at it from an annual perspective. So you want the annual average. You have total average. You have average weekly rate. You have average weekly wage, which is average weekly wage per employee. That's one that's important. Don't worry about total taxables, and don't worry about employer contributions to UI, because only government types that deal with unemployment insurance worry about that. But what you might want to do is look at the aggregate. You can look at aggregate, which takes all of these different ownership groups together and combines them, or you can actually look at them separate. So what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to click on all of them. And for the sake of this debate, I'm only going to look at, I want to look at professional and technical services. I want to look at average employment, because mainly we're looking at, when we look at location quotients, we're looking at employment. We're not as much looking at wages. I want to then go up and I can pull it by county. So this is available for counties. We're going to look at Cumberland. I try to remember if anybody's Cumberland, but Cumberland is Fayetteville. Fayetteville's home to Fort Bragg. So I know that there's going to be some civilian and some military. Now, the thing about it, though, is even when you look at government data, you have to remember there are other industries out there that are not just government as in federally owned, but there's private industry that's government, that has government contracts, and they're counted as private. So I tell you what, instead of looking at Cumberland, what I want to do is look at Buncombe. And the reason I want to look at Buncombe is that there's actually a federal agency with a very strong presence in Buncombe County. Buncombe County is Asheville. Buncombe County is home not only to a large office for the EPA, it's also home to a large office for NOAA, National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration. They've both got large offices there. So there's some federal level research jobs, and they might come up in that professional and technical services one. I'm looking to see if they would come in the others. We're going to try that one. And again, I've got my year 15 annual sector 2. I've picked everything else. I'm going to click on view down here at the bottom. It's going to chew on it for a second. And what it's going to do then is it's going to show me this data. Let me pull North Carolina out. I don't want to look at North Carolina with this. For this example, but you'll need North Carolina. And what you see is there's actually in that field, the aggregate, it says here, okay, it's interesting. Okay, that's better. So you got to look at Q4, which I'm a little surprised. I thought it would come up in annual, but they must not produce that information on an annual basis. So you'll need to look at Q4 2015. Look at quarter 4 2015. And what you see here is in that particular field, you see there's a low variable. Only 10 of the jobs in that particular sector, professional, scientific, and technical, are federal jobs. The other 5,395 are private jobs, which I'm a little surprised by. They may be under a different categorization. That was a little surprising to me. But let's look at agriculture, forestry, hunting, and fishing. There might be a variance there. And you see here, all of the jobs in this case are private jobs. So if you want to look at, if you live in a place, let's go to Cumberland just so I can say we did it. And it might be that they've, over time, kind of moved all those jobs into public administration. But there used to be a time where they didn't. They kind of did try to do their best to categorize them by the different domains. Here's a little bit better. You can see there. You've got a federal count in Cumberland County of only 106 of 4,651 total private jobs in professional, scientific, and technical services. Overall, that's a little surprising. The other thing about it, a lot of times at the county level, they don't count state and local government numbers. So the challenge we have when you're looking at government jobs, and again, this is kind of something you can decide if you want to do or not, and I'm probably spending more time talking about it than I should, is that it really depends on how the information is calculated. But if it was done completely and thoroughly, you would see how many jobs in a given sector are true private sector jobs and how many are local government jobs, state government jobs, and federal government jobs. If you want to see that for your given county, the way to do that is to use the quarterly census employment and wages report, because that information is there where it can look at a sector and then look at the ownership of those jobs based on who owns them. It's either private, local, state, or federal government, and give you that information. If you want to see it again, you need to use 2015 quarter 4 for your measure. Looking back at the comments, how can we identify the distribution of basic versus non-basic industries changed over time? Again, that's looking at, remember, the basic ones are the ones where the location quotients are positive. Think of it that way. Your location quotients, where the location quotients are greater than, location quotients are greater than 1. Location quotients are greater than 1. Where the location quotient is less than 1 would be a non-basic. So your basics, the ones that are the ones that kind of build up, those are the ones with a location quotient greater than 1, because that's an indication of those businesses that export. The basics, of course, are the ones that exports. Yes, and overall, for most of you can use the CA05 and CA25 data, so that's what you can use. Yes, I would use 2005 and 2015 as both years. When it says both years, use 2005 and 2015. Those are the comparisons, because we want to kind of look. The good thing about using 2005 and 2015 is that you've got a recession in the middle, and it's been not only a recession. Not only is it a recession because you've hopefully gone through a recovery, but it was a very transformative period. This recession, we don't know how historians are going to look at it 20, 30 years from now. I'm looking at it as probably a much bigger deal from a labor market standpoint and a labor distribution issue than I look at it from a financial economic position, much like the Great Depression was in the 1930s. And I'm not comparing it directly to the Great Depression, but what we have seen in the last 10 years since this major economic disruption has been not only, of course, some challenges economically in terms of incomes, in terms of wealth, in terms of issues with housing and other sectors. But what we've also seen is we have seen a transition and a migration of our workforce, both with respect to the sectors that the workforce is going, as well as that migration geographically and on a generational perspective. So those are things to look at. So I would look at 2005 and 2015 with respect to what the assignment says. And I'm going to pull up the assignment right here. Y'all should see the assignment. First of all, you'll notice I've highlighted the deadline. After talking to a couple of people, realizing that this is a busy week, and it's a busy week for me too, we did move the deadline to this Saturday at 11:59 p.m. Eastern. You can still get it in on Friday if you want, the 24th, but the deadline will be this Saturday, March 25th at 11:59 p.m. Eastern time. Again, you will see, and of course what you're looking to is you're seeing that this assignment should be pretty simple because you have a lot of this data already calculated if you've been thorough in your prior assignments and done the location quotients. So if you've got that data already built up for your county, now it's the time to use that data, do these calculations, and write up a report. Report's only 2 to 3 pages. You've got the ability to pull in the sectoral distribution and location quotient. They also have, of course, you can decide to yourself from a critical perspective for extra points. Does that location quotient really work? Also looking at what constitutes basic employment. And there are some different calculations there, and you can kind of look at them. But in reality, what we're really talking about is, what we're talking about, I would go to chapter 6 in your text, because chapter 6 in your text talks a little bit about what basic employment is, and go off of that. Are there any other questions with respect to assignment 5? The other thing I'll mention also to point out, if you're looking for how you calculate the economic multiplier, look at the last sentence in paragraph 3 of the procedure section. Well, all I will say, I understand your concern. I did give out this assignment last week. So there have been 2 weeks on this assignment. So we sent the assignment out last Monday, and I sent it out in a message that went through Blackboard. So I understand the concern, but there have been 2 weeks given on the assignment. You are going to get assignment 6 tonight. I'm going to spend just a quick second going over it. In fact, assignment 6 already been posted to Blackboard, so that's already there. But assignment 6 you will get tonight. I understand it's a little bit of a challenge, but we do have everything should be. I understand the concern. So what I'm going to do with this next assignment 6 is I'm going to explain assignment 6, but honestly, assignment 6 is going to look very simple compared to assignment 5. First of all, I think overall, as a group, everybody's doing a good job with the assignments and is understanding them. And I think overall, everybody should be proud of what they're doing. I realize a lot of you do have some challenges, but and I will say this, when I grade these assignments, I grade them as a practitioner. I do make sure that you've completed the work, but I'm grading it from the standpoint of that if I'm a practitioner, do I understand what you're saying, and can I look at the data and understand what you're trying to convey? That may not necessarily be the same way that one of the other members of the faculty are, but in terms of how I'm approaching this class, I'm approaching this class from an instructional perspective as a practitioner. So that could be, there's some positive to that, and there's some not so positive to that. But I think overall, I will say this, everybody is doing a good job. Are there any other questions at this moment with respect to assignment 5? Can I provide a video with how to calculate the employment multiplier short one in Excel? Yeah, I can. I will do that. You'll get it later tonight, but I will do one. I will do one. It'll either be later tonight or first thing in the morning. But I will do one to calculate the employment multiplier. It should not be too difficult if you actually look at the write-up, but I will do it because I understand you want to make sure you do it right. So, but we will take that into consideration. So without anything else, I am going to move over now to assignment 6. And assignment 6 is one that I have added, and I've added it because I want to do something for everybody that will benefit you as a practitioner. So this one actually does not have to do with all the work that you've done so far. So it's a little bit of a change of pace. But don't worry, because the next 2 assignments that you will have after this assignment, which will have to do with an analysis prior to the submission of your final report. After this 6th assignment, you have 2 assignments left, so assignment 7 and 8. And those 2 are really your final assignments that you'll do during the month of April. And we will figure out a way to facilitate a presentation of assignment 7. But before that, I want to talk about assignment 6, and that's this resource toolkit. If you've been doing some reading, if you've been more observant in looking at articles, looking at the news, you've probably learned that there are a lot of resources out there for you in local government or state government or working with a nonprofit or working with just about anybody to pull from to facilitate economic development. There's resources at the local level, there's resources at the state level, there are resources at the national level, and there are even some private organizations out there. These are private nonprofits, but there are a multitude of agencies and organizations that are out there that can provide resources in different types of economic development. Now, the latter part of this textbook and the latter chapters cover a lot of this when they start kind of looking at what does economic development look like? Because we talked about how you kind of develop an understanding of your local economy, how you understand your local strengths, how you understand where your employment bases are. And we spend a lot of time in employment because at the end of the day, it's really about people. And that's especially true when we get to the practitioner side, because in reality, it's really about making everybody believe and feel and see and experience growth and development and success. So the resource toolkit is about the myriad is about putting together a little set that each of you will contribute to and enable you to provide some basic information about who one of these resources are. I've picked 30 resources that I believe that if you were a local government in North Carolina, if you were working for a local government in North Carolina, city, municipal, or any other entity in North Carolina, would be beneficial for you to know and beneficial for you to access, possibly with respect to information. So your assignment is going to be to write up a simple, no more than 2 pages. I'm going to be very strict about this. No more than 2 pages. It needs to be thorough with respect to the 4 questions I'm asking or the 4 parts of it. But it's basically like you're submitting an entry into a directory. So you're going to highlight each section. You're going to give a heading to each section, and then you're going to write a little bit about it. You're going to write an overview about what the organization is and what it does, where it's located, where if it's like an agency under an existing state or federal department, where it would be under, as well as what it does, what its primary purpose is. Talk about the types of clients it serves. Not every agency out there serves everybody. Some of them are focused on a particular sector. Some of them are focused on a particular size of business. Some of them are focused on a particular location of the business or a location of a marketplace. Talk about the types of services that are provided. All of these services have websites. All of them have, there's all kinds of information about every one that I've listed. I have made sure that there's information out there. And there's a couple that I haven't. The Port Authority is not on there. I have tried to keep these from being very location specific. So for example, Global Trans Park's not on there. Some of you know Global Trans Park very well. I don't see the need to include Global Trans Park because that really only applies to a very small number of counties and to a very select group of counties in eastern North Carolina. I also haven't included Carolina Connector because that's predominantly counties in northeastern North Carolina. So I've tried to encompass those that regardless of where you are in North Carolina, this will be applicable to you. This is the list of 30, and you can see some of them are there in a generic fashion like Small Business Center. Every community college in North Carolina has a small business center. So you'd be describing generically what a small business center does. Same thing for like workforce development boards or councils of governments or local chambers of commerce. And I think it's important to understand the difference between what a local chamber of commerce is, what your state chamber of commerce is, and what the U.S. Chamber of Commerce is. Because in all honesty, they have different purposes, different sets of services, and to be brutally honest, they serve different groups of customers and clients. And that's important to think about. You also see some others in there that you may not know. I've already had one person take Golden Leaf Foundation. They saw that it was on there. They contacted me. I said, sure, why not? So Golden Leaf Foundation is also listed there. It's a statewide group, so it's up there. And there's others. And again, you can see this covers a wide variety of agencies. And it's not all inclusive, but I wanted to put 30 on there because I knew we had more than 30 students, and I felt that was a good set to start with. So each of you will pick one. It's first come, first serve. So if you don't, if you pick someone else that somebody else has done, you'll have to pick another one. If you haven't picked one by Friday night, by this Friday night, I am probably going to assign you one automatically, and you'll get that assignment on Saturday. But you've got a whole week to do it. And again, you're going to find that this is very informative, and you're going to find this is a different change of pace, but it gives you a chance to do a quick write-up that's a little outside of what you've done. The next 2 assignments will be tied to your final report, not your final exam, but your final report. The next one after this will be a SWOT analysis. We'll talk a little bit more about that next week. It will probably be due on the 14th of April. And then, so you will have plenty of time for that one. And then there will be a final report that will be due after that. And I believe that'll probably be due on the 28th. So you'll have 2 more assignments after this one that will each have enough time to complete. And we'll definitely have some time to talk about those as we go through them. So the information about assignment 6 is already in your course document section of Blackboard. It's already there for you to review if you get a chance. Are there any other questions? Okay, any other questions? Other things to remind you about, make sure you're doing your article readings. Remember, you need to read 2 articles. Deadline for that's middle of next month. And you will need to post threads about those articles in on the discussion board so that you can, so I can review them for credit. I'm going to be reviewing that this week to see how people are doing. So remember, don't try to do them both at the end. Try to kind of pace yourself on those. That's important for you to do. Other than that, again, overall, I thought everybody did a good job on the midterms after I've had a chance to finish grading them. I thought everybody did an excellent job. For this, the grades on the discussion board ones, yes, you will get those grades before your final. I'm probably going to grade them. I'm probably going to send out all the grades at the same time, but they'll be after the due date. But y'all will get them before before it's due. You'll get them before your final, so that you will know what those grades are. Overall, I think everybody should know that overall your grades are pretty good. I think everybody is doing a good job. It's important to see that y'all are learning from this, and that hopefully this is encouraging you to think about the economy and think about economic development in respect to the various. I know some of you are going into economic development. I hope this is beneficial to you, but I also hope for those of you who are in other sectors of public work that the information you're learning is beneficial to your understanding of how your role in government does play to economic development. And you can look at some other things. For example, if someone wanted to write from a professional standard standpoint about what happened in Raleigh this past week with the fire, that would probably be a good one to look at, because obviously that's a major concern. You have a different type of construction than what most people think of, with higher story buildings, high density buildings, where it's what they call pedestal construction, podium construction, where the bottom floor is concrete, but everything above it is wood frame. And that's overall is considered to be fireproof. And in fact, one of the buildings next to the building that caught on fire because it was still exposed wood and burned to the ground and created a massive fire, one of the buildings next door to it was the same style of construction. And while it certainly showed some wear from the intense heat created by the fire, the building itself did not catch on fire. So overall, the construction people will tell you, the structure, the idea of the building once it's complete is sound, is just getting there. And it is a concern, because the idea of using combustible building materials like wood is something that we kind of went away from for the last 100 years, and particularly in urban settings like downtown areas. So something to look at. You can look at that from a scientific perspective. It doesn't have to just be from a news perspective. What are the considerations in terms of how that can affect the local economy? If you can find work out there that'll talk about this. If we don't have anything else, I am going to go ahead and wrap this session up. Our next session will be next Monday. There will be a session in January that will have to be, in April that will be rescheduled, and that's because I have a conflict and I believe the conflict that I have is on, I'm doing the math in my head, is going to be on Monday night, April the 10th. So I will need to schedule another time to do that session. It will not be able to be on April the 10th. That's something that came up over the weekend that I was alerted to. So we will have a session that week, because I know it's right before there will be an assignment due on the 14th, but I will work with you to schedule a time that people can that we can accommodate people. So if there's nothing else, I'll go ahead and wrap up for this evening. Thank you very much for tuning in. And we'll go back to the main screen. And thank you all very much, and talk to you all next week. Take care.